The morning of November the 20th is a morning I will live with me for the rest of my life. It was very close.
She tried to kill his twin sister.
This has been an emotional 10-month trial.
A nurse trusted with the lives of newborn babies.
Making the 33-year-old the UK's worst child killer in modern times.
The crimes were almost too upsetting to contemplate. 7 babies, all in the same hospital, dead.
In one of the most medically advanced nations on Earth, inside a hospital designed to protect the most fragile of lives, something began to go horribly wrong. Over just a few months, a disturbing pattern emerged. Babies who had been stable, some premature, others full-term, were suddenly dying. No infection sweeping through the ward. No machinery malfunctioning. No explanation anyone could see. One by one, newborns who had been fighting for life, or even thriving just hours earlier, would collapse without warning. Post-mortems offered no answers. Staff searched for patterns but found only confusion. And families who thought they were safe inside a modern neonatal unit were instead left shattered. The Countess of Chester Hospital had always been an unremarkable, trusted place. But between 2015 and 2016, it became the setting for one of the most chilling medical mysteries in British history. It began quietly. A warm June night in 2015. A baby boy admitted to the Countess of Chester Hospital, premature but stable, suddenly stopped breathing. No warning. No distress. He was improving. But then, the next moment, he was no more. The ward was stunned. Neonatal deaths are rare, but this one felt different. He had been doing so well. Nothing had pointed to this. Had they missed something? What was happening? Just days later, another preemie deteriorated without explanation. Then a 4th case, a full-term newborn girl, born healthy, who suddenly crashed and died. 4 unexplained emergencies. In the same neonatal ward. All in 1 month. A mother of 1 victim grieved. "My baby was perfect. They told us she was doing well. And then, she was gone."
I went over to by the incubator, had a little look at Felicity, sat down by the cot, and then buzzers started going off, all alarms and bleepers started going off. A nurse ran over, it wasn't Lucy, I remember that much, that ran over to press the emergency buzzer. And then from that moment, I think I must have just gone into extreme shock. Because a nurse turned around and said, "Get your husband." And I was just still sat there, I just went numb. And then she turned around and screamed at me, she said, "Get your husband now." And then I jumped up and basically went to call Mike.
Yet each test for infection, equipment failure, environmental exposure, each review came back clean. No links, no answers, only grief. Still, the feeling on the ward was impossible to ignore. Something was not right. Then came August. It was a quiet night on the ward with dim lights, machines softly humming. Most infants rested peacefully in their incubators. Until a piercing scream of a baby rented the air. Not the ordinary cry of hunger. This was sharper, raw, almost primal. Upon hearing this, a mother, arriving for her evening visit, froze. She knew that cry. It was her son's. She ran to his side. What she saw would haunt her forever, her tiny boy bleeding from the mouth. Staff rushed to reassure her. Perhaps it was from the feeding tube irritating his throat? She was reassured with calm words. Professional tone. She wanted to believe it. But by morning, baby E was gone. And before the grief could even settle, his twin brother collapsed with a sudden, unexplained drop in blood sugar. Doctors fought to save him. He lived, barely. But tests revealed something chilling in his blood. Something that had never been prescribed. Something that should never have been there at all. By now, whispers were spreading. Quiet alarm bells ringing in the minds of senior doctors. The hospital changed protocols. Adjusted staff patterns. reviewed procedures. Nothing worked. And as the cases piled up, an unthinkable realization began to take shape. These weren't random tragedies. There was a pattern. And someone, or something, was always there when it happened. By mid-2016, whispers turned to alarm. After months of unexplained collapses, senior doctors saw a disturbing pattern. Too many tragedies, and one staff member present almost every time.
I had described to me a horrifying realization on part of the pediatricians. One of them said, every time this is happening to me, that I'm being called in for these catastrophic events which were unexpected and unexplained, Lucy Letby is there. And then somebody else said, yes, I found that. And they all realised that the common factor for each of them was Letby's presence on the unit.
At first, they wondered if it could be coincidence, a tragic overlap of circumstance. But as the cases mounted, that explanation became impossible to believe. Behind closed doors, consultants brought their concerns to hospital leadership. They weren't naming names, not yet, but they urged immediate action, remove the staff member from patient care until answers could be found. The doctors pushed for action, but hospital executives resisted. Without proof, they argued, removing a staff member would be reckless, damaging to careers, reputations, the hospital itself. So nothing changed. The staff member returned to duty. Within 90 minutes, another baby collapsed. This time the child survived. Just barely. For the consultants, that was it. The final line. They could no longer wait on hospital leadership. They went to the police. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Please give this video a like and share your thoughts in the comments about this shocking story. Your support helps us to keep covering cases like this. Now, back to the story. Nearly a year passed before the silence finally broke. In May 2017, Cheshire Constabulary launched a covert investigation, codenamed Operation Hummingbird. Detectives and medical experts began combing through thousands of records, every shift rota, every chart, every file from the neonatal unit. And almost immediately, they saw it. A disturbing pattern. The same presence, again and again, at the very moments babies collapsed. But now investigators had the tools to go further. They began re-examining lab work, toxicology reports, and post-mortem data that had been overlooked in the chaos of the ward. What surfaced was chilling. 2 infants who had survived were found to have insulin coursing through their blood, a drug never prescribed to them, yet somehow injected into their tiny bodies. In other cases, traces of air were discovered in the bloodstream and stomach, levels that could not be explained by chance, by equipment, or by natural decline. These were not medical mysteries. They were deliberate acts. Each chart, each file, each unexplained collapse was no longer just a tragedy, it was evidence. The neonatal unit, once seen as a place of healing, had become a crime scene. On July 3, 2018, the police felt they had gathered enough evidence to take action. In the early morning hours, officers quietly arrived at a house on Westbourne Road in Chester, the home of Lucy Letby. They arrested the young woman on suspicion of multiple counts of infant murder. As neighbors watched in shock, police escorted Letby out of her home in handcuffs. You might be wondering, who was this person? 28-year-old Lucy Letby was known as a quiet, compassionate nurse with a reputation that inspired trust. She had studied nursing at the University of Chester, graduating with a focus on neonatal care, and began working at the Countess of Chester Hospital soon after. Colleagues described her as diligent, soft-spoken, and always gentle with the babies. Parents remembered her for her calm bedside manner, her empathetic words, and the way she would reassure them during difficult moments. But when investigators searched her home after her arrest, the case took a darker turn. Inside, they uncovered medical records, shift rotas, and a series of handwritten notes, fragments of thought that would later be seen as crucial evidence. On some of these notes, investigators discovered haunting phrases scrawled in ink, including, "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them, and I am evil, I did this." These appeared to be confession letters, or anguished admissions, that Letby had written and kept. In one note, she had also written, "Today is your birthday and you are not here and I am so sorry for that," as if addressing a deceased infant. The police couldn't believe what they were reading. It was as if Letby's own hand had revealed her guilt in black and white. As detectives dug deeper, more evidence emerged. Text messages from Letby's phone, staff rotas, and her personal diary confirmed what the consultant suspected.
"There are no words to make this time any easier. Thinking of you today and always. Sorry I cannot be there to say goodbye."
Lucy Letby's perverse public behaviour was even sicker than messages to her colleagues. She got a thrill out of toying with the emotions of the parents whose children she'd killed. She'd even send them sympathy cards.
Lucy Letby was the only nurse present at every one of the suspicious incidents. In some cases, after babies died on night shifts, the pattern would repeat on day shifts once Lucy switched to days, a very conspicuous correlation. Investigators now had a web of circumstantial evidence. It painted a picture of a calculated killer hiding in plain sight. Lucy Letby, a neonatal nurse. Trusted. Familiar. Quiet. The news sent shockwaves across the UK. A healthcare worker accused of turning her duty of care into something unspeakable. Headlines screamed,
"Lucy Letby, a neonatal nurse, convicted of killing 7 babies."
Families who had grieved years earlier now faced a new, horrifying possibility. The media called her the Angel of Death. And what was once a medical mystery had become one of the most disturbing criminal cases in British history. In October 2022, Lucy Letby's long-awaited trial began at Manchester Crown Court, capturing the nation's attention. The prosecutors laid out the full chilling story of how this seemingly ordinary nurse perverted her learning and weaponized her craft to inflict harm. Letby had used the tools of care, breathing tubes, feeding syringes, medications, as weapons. According to the prosecution, she injected air into babies' bloodstreams and stomachs, overfed them milk or fluids to the point of collapse, and even poisoned some with insulin. She often attacked the infants when she was alone with them, and then, with cruel composure, would call for help as if she'd just noticed the baby in crisis. Many of the babies were premature or had health issues, which gave Letby cover. She could pretend the child's condition had simply deteriorated on its own. In her hands, innocuous substances like air, milk, or insulin became lethal instruments. The court heard that she got away with it for so long because she deceived her colleagues, making these sudden collapses appear like medical emergencies no one could have foreseen. The trial of Lucy Letby lasted nearly 10 months, one of the longest and most complex in British history. Families of the victims sat waiting for justice, clutching photos of their lost little ones. Lucy Letby herself sat silently in the dock, occasionally looking down, flanked by security officers. Finally, on August 18, 2023, the verdicts were delivered. The foreperson of the jury began to speak, and the silence was absolute.
Lucy Letby, on each of the 7 offences of murder and the 7 offences of attempted murder, I sentence you to imprisonment for life. Because the seriousness of your offences is exceptionally high, I direct that the early release provisions do not apply. The order of the court, therefore, is a whole life order on each and every offence, and you will spend the rest of your life in prison.
Lucy Letby was found guilty on 7 counts of murder, for killing 5 baby boys and 2 baby girls, and guilty on 7 counts of attempted murder of 6 other infants. The Angel of Death nurse had been unmasked as Britain's most prolific child serial killer in modern history. As the guilty verdicts were read out, Letby reportedly showed little emotion. Many of the parents in the courtroom sobbed with relief and grief at the same time. Lucy Letby, The kindly nurse who had doted on newborns in front of their parents had been secretly killing some of them in cold blood. It was a revelation almost too shocking to fathom. The betrayal of trust was complete.
Lucy Letby's trial lasted more than 9 months. Last week found guilty of murdering 7 newborn babies and attempting to kill 6 others. She'll go down in history as one of the world's worst child serial killers.
Nurses are often called angels for the care they give. Letby had twisted that into the moniker the media gave her, the Angel of Death. As the judge announced a sentence so severe it's only been given to a handful of women in UK history, the truth was laid bare. Lucy Letby would never again walk free. She received a rare whole life order, meaning life in prison with no chance of release. Lucy Letby has never admitted guilt. Even after her conviction, she maintains her innocence. While Letby remains behind bars, a haunting question lingers. How was she able to act unchecked for so long? The revelation that a nurse murdered 7 infants and tried to kill 6 more, without intervention for over a year, ignited national outrage. Public anger and grief pushed the UK government to launch a full inquiry. What began as a limited review was quickly expanded, granted statutory powers to force testimony and uncover internal hospital records. This legacy is one of horror, but also of hard lessons. Lessons carved in heartbreak. The hope is that through justice, vigilance, and reform, no other family will face what these parents endured. Because in the end, this isn't just a story about a killer. It's about the babies, the tiny lives that never had a chance, the futures stolen before they began, and the families who now carry the weight of their absence forever. Thank you for watching this deep dive into a deeply disturbing case. Stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and never stop asking questions, especially when the cost of silence is life itself.